Welcome back to another Imp and Skizz podcast. I wanted to take a quick moment to deliver a disclaimer on this video. We tell some stories that some viewers or listeners might find to be a bit disturbing. There's talks of blood and severe injury that are crucial to the moment, but may be a bit much for some people. So, there you go. You've been warned and stuff. Enjoy the show. 1 second before you got hit and were dying, you had not been hit and you weren't in the process of dying.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like 2 to 3 seconds after that was a reality, she was in motion to fix this, which could be argued that 4 to 5 seconds earlier in her life, she had no idea what she was about to do.
Welcome back to the show. There's no telling where we'll go. So come and share a laugh on the Imp and Skizz podcast.
Today we're talking about the power of calm. We're talking about what it is when you let frustration take the reins and what that can do to us.
Yeah.
And
I think usually good things.
No. That
Yeah.
typically doesn't work out well for you. But I figured it would be good to reference a certain video and a certain a history in NASA that's pretty awesome. Now, my father-in-law several weeks ago got me this hat. I got a prop here. If you're listening to audio only, I got this prop here, and it's probably hard to see. I'll do it in this camera. So you can see it says, try SC to aux. Now, here's what I love about what just happened, is we have a pretty versatile audience, and I'm venturing less than 1% of them who are listening right now or watching right now are like, no way. I
would love to hear this statistic,
me
to know
too.
it for real.
Me too, because I'm going to tell you this right now. When I didn't know what this was. Now, my father-in-law and we have a very, you also can't see this. Hold on. It says right there underneath, steely-eyed missile man, right? And that is the gentleman in NASA that they're talking about, this is amazing. My father-in-law, we have a very interesting dynamic. And so he watches the podcast sometimes, and he's very supportive of everything I'm doing, and that's great. But he buys me this hat, and he also we both love space stuff a lot. He buys me this hat, and I literally, he gives me no information about it because he knows me. I'm obviously going to look this up, right?
Oh,
so,
I assumed like you guys, because you travel a lot together.
Yeah.
I assumed you went to like NASA, like space museum or something.
We did.
And then heard the story together, and that's when the cap came about.
Well, this is likely a story that he's known about for decades and that I never knew about, because we enjoy the space travel stuff. You know what I mean? We were able to see a couple launches, and that was really, really neat. We went to Kennedy Space Center together. That's a lot of fun. But anyways, he gets me this, and he just knows all I need to do is have the hat, and I'm going to go do research on what the heck is this about.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a video out there. I'm going to put the link in the description so people can check it out after this. But the bottom line is, and before we kicked off this video, I had you watch it so you'd have some sort of frame of reference.
Never heard this story before or seen that.
Yeah, me neither. I had no idea what this even meant, right? But the bottom line is just to give a quick recap, because a lot of you are going to go watch it. But Apollo 12, there was a bit of a kind of a nightmare on takeoff, where you'll learn in the video that there was a lightning strike that just kind of messed up their electronics. It's just bad luck. But long story short, they're in motion. It's not like they were like, oh, we can abort, we haven't taken off yet. This is very, very bad, and they have no readout of their controls. They don't know what is happening. And by they, I mean everybody in the ship, everybody in ground control, everybody is like, what are we dealing with? Well, there was one guy, steely-eyed missile man, which
That can't be his real name.
No, it's not. His name is, and now I feel terrible for not remembering, because I just watched it, and it's like John Aaron or something like that, or I'm sure I just butchered that. But in any case, he noticed a pattern in the data. Now, when everybody else, now I'm not going to say everybody else was freaking out, but you have to imagine that panic and frustration was starting to sink in and take control, because there's what a feeling of hopelessness when not one person knows what to do.
Mm-hmm.
When I mean, the astronauts, they can't read anything. There's no data. They're flying blind. They're done. And he says, try SCE to aux. And not one person knows what he's talking about. But what is going on here is that he had seen a data pattern of this type a year prior, and that's when he learned about switching a toggle switch from SCE to auxiliary. And SCE is something electronics. I don't know.
Could you imagine like having a control panel with so many buttons and,
Yeah.
and levers and stuff that there's one there that like nobody knows what it does.
Yeah. Bro,
That's crazy.
I will argue there's probably several there. And my logic behind that is that if there was only one, they would have been like, what does this one do? But apparently there's so many, it's just normal to not know what's going on in there. And so he says, and they're like, what did you say? And he's conveying it, like have them switch SCE to aux, to auxiliary power. And let's see what happens here. And I think it's going to fix the problem. And nobody knew what switch he was even talking about. He had to say, it's like behind the guy's head. Like they were like, what? They had no idea. They found this toggle switch they had never paid attention to. They switched it, fixed all the problems, right? So what's the story here? So that was an interesting thing, but steely-eyed Missile Man was just calm.
Yeah.
Just calm. I've seen this data pattern before. It was a year ago, I believe. Now, in the midst of all this, these people are rocketing into space. I mean, they're going to their inevitable end, if you will. And his mind is like, I've seen this data pattern before. Let me conjure up something. I think this is that SCE to auxiliary switch. I think that'll fix it. Have them do SCE to aux. This is while they're flying Mach whatever, and they're like, and people are like, what are you talking about? He's like, just have them do it. And he's super calm, right? So that's the power of calm. And I think that there is something to unpack here in regards to what can be done when you make the deliberate action of just slowing down your mind in the face of chaos. And sometimes chaos is abrupt and sometimes it's more gradual when life seems to be taking a chaotic shift. We don't know how to manage that. Calm is still on the table for how to handle it. So let's unpack some of our own stories on when we've done both.
You know, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I've like mastered being calm, but I can't think of the last time I've actually lost my cool. Like I've been sitting here trying to rack my brain of like, when's the last time like I freaked out, you know? But I don't lose my cool in a way that you would normally think of, to where like I'm actually freaking out and maybe breaking things or there's sheer panic. For me, what happens when I lose my cool is that my brain just goes to a place to where I can't think straight. Mm-hmm. Like I just end up making bad choices, making bad decisions. Not that I get aggressive or angry or anything like that. I just can't calm the mind enough to find the path to the best answer to a solution. It's like anxiety building type of thing will happen, right? And then I end up making a decision I regret, you know. But it's usually not super damaging. It's just like, it's one of those things like once it's said and done, I'm just like, yeah, I could have maybe just like taken a few breaths, you know, like I haven't learned to meditate yet, but I can imagine that's the purpose of it, right?
Yeah.
To calm the mind when things start racing. Mm-hmm. And for me, I can still get in a zone where as things are not going my way or a way I envisioned, my mind will start to race and I can't calm it down enough to just make the right choices. Yeah. And that actually happens a lot, so much so that I don't have a specific story to tell. You know what I mean? Because those moments don't necessarily stick around in my mind. It's just like afterwards. Yeah. I'm just like, yeah, I should have just thought about that a little bit more, you know, just taking more time. I always feel like when things are happening and my mind starts going like that there's some sort of like time limit to making a decision. Yeah. And I always feel like I'm under the gun that has to happen right then and there. And that's hardly ever the case. You know, it's like if you can just calm down enough to realize it's okay if I take 60 seconds to kind of like pull myself out of this situation. You know, if you can somehow like leave your body and hover above yourself, that's, I guess meditation might be that kind of feeling, and just realize it's okay. And then give some thought to it and then give the proper response. But instead, I always feel like I have to answer this right now. And I don't care if it's right or wrong. I just have to do something, you know, and you put this pressure on yourself. And most of the time, that's when my mistakes are made, you know. So, I mean, obviously, I say that now as an adult, I guess, and having learned some life lessons. But, you know, as a kid, I didn't have that kind of control. And we've told stories on the show before about, you know, me losing my cool, especially like when we're talking about pet peeves, you know, when things just strike that chord within you. I was unable to control myself when I was less mature, we'll say. And that's when I would throw tantrums and tear my bedroom apart because I got blamed for something.
Or break those jars.
Yeah, get into my mom's mayonnaise jar stash and break jars while I cussed as a 9-year-old.
If you didn't see that podcast, I don't even remember which one
I don't
it
even remember
was.
which one that was. Maybe the We Were Idiots or something. I can't remember. But that one, or maybe competition. Did we do one on competition? Because it was stemming from a coach getting on me and me not being able to handle that coach. He must have just said the right words that day. But yeah, he'd pissed me off enough that I had to go break glass.
Well, okay, so let's think about it. So I actually see you as one of the calmest people I know. I actually see you as somebody that is able to face hardship and adversity in a very focused manner, right? And doesn't make you superhuman. You're going to have your moments as well. That's why that story tickled me the way it did, because you were a young kid. And if you remember, like, I think, again, I don't remember what podcast it was, but when you told that story, I couldn't stop laughing because it was just so funny to hear, to try to imagine you losing your cool like that. And so I just was like, that was such a great story, but you do exemplify what it is to stay calm and do things, and I think that you can see the world for what it is. But yes, you're going to give into those moments. You're going to have those moments of panic. And you're right. You also have a propensity to answer. You put answering quick has a higher priority than answering correctly to you. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like some kind of like, as the pressure of the situation starts to build, this internal clock just starts spinning out of control to where I actually like lose track of time. And time feels like it's going super fast. So even though I might answer in a couple seconds, in my head, it actually took me a couple minutes.
Yeah.
But in reality, it was a couple seconds, which means if I just relaxed a little bit and realized like that time wasn't moving as fast as I felt it was, that I could take a couple more seconds to just relax, think it through, and hopefully make a much better decision. But instead, you're right. Like I pressure myself to just like go. You got to have something out in right now. Even if it's wrong.
You should work in the media, dude. Because all the media,
we kind of do. Is we're on a podcast, right?
No.
This is
news media. Because blanket statement, they're all about being first, not about being accurate. So like you're right. You would flourish there. So I think, and also I'd like to go into some examples of what it is to see calm in a world where I think most people would see some panic and frustration in regards, because frustration is based on you have an expectation and the expectation doesn't quite play out the way that you saw it coming through.
That's my life every day.
That's
my life every day. Every day I wake up thinking I know exactly how today is going to go.
Yeah.
And then the first thing that goes wrong is like, this whole day's ruined, and the frustration kicks in. So I think that there's definitely a lot for us to talk about in that space, because that's very familiar for me. I'm sure you feel the same way. I know that your new journey into content creation, which we hyped on a few podcasts ago, has not started as well as you would hope for.
Yeah.
So
I think it's normal to expect interferences, but it feels like there's been a barrage of external factors that have come down and been like, we're going to make this as hard as possible. Now it's been sort of a shtick. Like it's been kind of I've made a bit out of it. We had the wall of explanation room, right? Or the room. What was it? The wall, the wow room, the woe room, wall of explanation. Where on the Hermitcraft server, I have a room I go into to be like, this is why I've been gone. And, and it was funny because it created a lot of good fodder in the comments of people being like, how did that many things happen at once like that, and it just sort of became this funny bit, and you just gotta be okay with it. But it was frustrating, no doubt. And I will.
But you didn't have to be okay with it. Like,
well, yeah. Like, if I wanted to make it, I did.
We've gotten to a point to where we're doing a much better job handling those stressors, and not freaking out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, maybe when you were younger, something like this would happen, and you'd punch a hole in the wall. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like we've kind of like learned to control that temper that can come up when things don't go our way a little bit more. But I question whether or not we're actually controlling it or we're bottling it. You know what I mean?
Oh man, good one. Good question. I think it's a little bit of both. And I think that both of them have the same goal. Whether you're controlling it or you're bottling it, I think it is. It stems from the logic part of our brain saying giving into this only makes things worse, man.
Mhm.
You know, and a perfect example of that would be everything that's been going on with my daughter has been, this has been hard to watch her go through this, the second surgery on her knee to clear the scar tissue. And then when she should be focusing on just physical therapy, she's got to travel back to New York. So we got to do this handoff between the PT here and the PT there and the surgeon here and the surgeon there. And there's like so much. Just yesterday, you and I were at the post office and I'm mailing MRI images to New York.
Yeah.
Like this is where like there's just so much going on. And in the midst of all that, I calling her surgeon in New York, and the scheduler that I'm dealing with is an unbelievable bitch. Like, yes, I'm saying exactly what I'm saying here. This is one of the rudest people I've ever dealt with in my life, and I've dealt with a lot of people, dude.
And how did you deal with her?
Well, I stayed as calm as possible, but I didn't know, and I also want to give people the benefit of the doubt. It's not like I'm this perpetually nice guy. I can be a nice guy, but yes, I've been probably rude to people in my life. It would be foolish to think I haven't. But this was a situation where it was like, I want to say to her, this is very clearly like an emotional thing, and you work for a surgeon. So everybody you talk to is going through an emotional, you've got to not speak to people like this.
Mhm.
And I'm telling you right now, I can't even tell you, I can't even tell you how hard it was for me not to scream at her in the phone and say, if you cut me off one more time, because I could not get a full sentence out. It was just constantly cutting me off. She was not interested in the second half of my sentence. You know what I mean? She was like, well, we don't do it that way. I'm like, okay, well, her surgeon here who just did surgery would like her to have her sutures on from 12 to 19 days. And she's like, they can be removed in 7 days. I'm all, you're not a doctor. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I didn't even say that, but I'm just like, what is happening here? You're the scheduler. You cannot do this. And I'm trying to like speak to her, but I need to get through to her. My brain is like, Skizz, if you give in to all the things you want to say to her, it's only going to make everything worse on your daughter. So keep it together. So I kept it. I was very diplomatic the whole time. And typically diplomacy comes easy to me because I'm not going to get worked up over silly stuff. This wasn't silly.
Right.
This woman needs to find a different job. You know what I mean? She is awful. And maybe it's an off day, but then later my wife had to talk to her. She's like, and my wife's like, no, that's just who she is.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we've said it in the past where like we try to give people the benefit of the doubt because we don't know what they're going through. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Maybe her daughter just tore her ACL.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Well,
you
then you think she'd be more compassionate, but yeah.
But you know, she could be in a space. You know, people. We said that like what were we talking about on a previous podcast about? You know, if somebody cut you off in traffic,
maybe they got to poop.
Maybe they got to poop.
Yeah.
Right. They didn't use their blinker. Maybe their blinker's broken. Their turning signal's broken.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like. We don't know things. You don't know everybody. You don't know what their lives are. And so it's better to just give the benefit of the doubt and assume that they're going through something bad themselves, which has made them act a certain way, than it is to just be like, that person is a bitch.
Yeah.
So I'm going to just fire back. You know what I mean? It's just better to think that way, I feel.
No, you're right. You're 100% right. And those are all the thoughts that were going through my head in regards to just calm yourself, man. And then later I was able to have those thoughts like maybe she's having a bad day or whatever, but there's, I don't know, but part of me is like, I don't know. Part of me is like, I don't care how bad your day was. You don't speak to people this rudely right out of the gate. Like I said nothing in terms of being rude. I didn't say anything to like, it was instantly like the phone call started and she was just in a terrible mood. And so I was like, okay. And so I was like, okay, well, this is who I am and this is what needs to happen. And I couldn't. She's like, well, we'll get her in on this day. I'm like, well, I actually need to convey what her surgeon was talking about. And it was just everything I said was, no, you don't know what you're talking about. And I'm like, this is my daughter. So there's no wiggle room here. You know what I mean? So that was a good example of what was I controlling it or was I bottling it? And I think that was more. It was both, but they both have the same interest. I don't need to blow up on her later. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I will say this. I can tell you the difference. I was controlling it because I don't feel like I need any resolve with this lady. My daughter has had a coach in the past. I was clearly bottling it because he does not want to be in the same room with me. from this point forward. You know what I mean? For the rest of my life. Like, it was one of those things where I'm like, wow, it's been years. And I was definitely bottling it because all that anger is still there.
Yeah.
It's still there.
This bottle that we're talking about, I envision it as not a perfectly sealed bottle. The way I envision it is we stuff things in this bottle. We put all these things that come up and we put them in that bottle. But if you imagine a seal that has a slow leak, right? They say that time heals all wounds, and I think time also heals these things that we bottle up, right? But slowly. So if you're stuffing all these feelings of maybe wanting to pop on somebody or whatever in this bottle, and you give it enough time, it's got that slow leak. But if you put too much in there too fast, then it's going to blow, right? So I think for me, and I think for people in general, we all probably have different size bottles. And you were saying very nice things about me earlier, so we'll go back to that. I feel like my bottle's actually a decent size. Like, I feel like I have a pretty big bottle to stuff all these emotions into, and then because it's big enough that slow leak is always happening, that I haven't had eruptions in a long time. Yeah. And maybe it's as you mature, your bottle gets bigger. I don't know, because like we said, when I was a kid, I would pop, You were there. I mean, you witnessed one. It was kind of a funny story. Remember when we needed to get to college and we were going to be late for class, and I hate being late. I hate being late to stuff. It just bothers me. So
I do too.
We were trying to yeah. So
I do. I don't like being late.
So we were trying to transfer a file onto a whatever zip drive thingy, and it was taking too long. And I the whole time I was watching, I was just like, it's never been this slow. And to me, I think that's exactly going back to what I said before. I think it was normal speed, but because I was under that pressure of, oh no, we're going to be late, I was freaking out. Yeah. And my clock was going faster, and I thought it was going slow. And that drove me to the point to where my frustration came out in what you think is a very funny way, but I just was like, let out that kind of primal rage.
So funny,
groan,
dude. A noise I'd never heard you make before. You pounded your meaty fist on the desk and just, and I was just like, whoa, I've never seen that.
Back then, my big old CRT monitor almost fell off the desk when I pounded my hand on there. Could have got worse. See, it could have broken my monitor. Could have gotten worse. And I couldn't afford a monitor back then.
Hey, I've made things worse. I've done it before. I've lost my cool. In terms, I was so frustrated about something that, I mean, it was kind of maybe a blind rage thing, but when my right fist is going through a windshield, at the end of it, I'm like, I just made so much harder on my life. Like so much harder.
I didn't know the human hand could go through the windshield without breaking your hand.
Dude, I'm telling you, I've had this talk. There's something wrong with my bones. I'm there. I have the craziest
Wolverine.
bones. I'm Wolverine.
They've injected the steel.
Yes.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. Like, you used to do that little wiggle finger thing and hit me with it,
here,
and it literally felt like you hit me with a crowbar.
Look at this, people.
Like, every single time.
You see this?
That is a dangerous.
Like
that's a dangerous finger that you have there. Like, there's titanium in there. Now I know what happened.
For the record, it wasn't a front punch that broke the windshield. It was a hammer fist. Okay. So there's no chance of that breaking my hand or your hand. It doesn't.
But you broke the windshield.
Yeah, this is not a good thing. I was very upset about something, and it was. This is for the record. This was a very long time ago, but I remember the whole controlling. I wasn't even interested in seeking calm. I think I was interested in seeking calm several seconds before the snap happened, if you will. And then there was no interest. There was only giving in to the frustration. There was only giving in to the fact that I had no control, right? Because we talked about, like, frustration comes from you have an expectation it's not met. Well, the catalyst to frustration is originally thinking you have control of things, and control is an absolute illusion. And so I lost control of something, and I was upset. And it's very bad. And when I broke the windshield, I remember being like, all I had to do was not do that, and I wouldn't have this windshield to pay for, and I wouldn't have blood everywhere. You know what I mean? I'm like, this is just, and it was honestly, I wasn't even mad. I mean, you want to talk about calm? I got inundated with calm after that. Like I was the calmest you can imagine because I was very embarrassed at my behavior. I was humiliated that I had the capacity to act like such an ass. You know what I mean? This is a long time ago, but I was very, I was really, really humiliated that I was just sort of like another typical person who just can't keep their stuff together. That's what it came off as. Like, you know, I do have calm. I have the wise words for people. I want to be a leader. This is back in the day. I want to be a leader. I want to be a good, what just happened? You know what I mean? Like, what was that? And that was and for the record, I'm going to be very clear here. It's not the first thing I've broken. You know what I mean? But I can say something like that's happened less than 5 times in my entire life. You know what I mean?
So let's test my bottle theory. And I don't know, because it was a while ago. I don't know if you can remember. Was there more going on at the time that had filled up your bottle, and that was the final blow point, if you can remember?
Oh, good question.
Or was that event just so big, that whole thing filled your bottle?
I actually think it's a combination of both. I think there was a lot going on, and the event itself was relatively big, and I think that's why there was no slow leak wasn't on the table. It was something was bound to pop. I'm guessing here, but like I can barely remember what I was even frustrated about. But I know that I remember the moment being like, this moment is so unjust, and I'm very upset. You know, now for the record, I want to say that if people give into those moments that remind us that we're human, it doesn't mean that you're bad. It just it was a very human thing. But I've always wanted to kind of be superhuman. I've always wanted to be above the things that are flaws, and I'm the furthest thing from not flawed.
We strive to be perfect. We've already talked about that's not a thing.
Yeah.
So accepting flaws is also a part of life, and it's something we need to understand. And like I said, I do feel like as things happen through our lives, you know, we have those situations where you're immediately humbled, you know, as soon as it happened. And now, next time something starts to come up, maybe in the back of your mind, I don't know if you actually play it through, but in the back of your mind, you might say, remember that one time I let this get to me so much that I put my hand through a windshield? I'm not going to do that again.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? So you learn your lessons, kind of, and that's what's growing your bottle. You know, I keep going back to the bottle. I'm proud of myself for this analogy. But, you know, like I just think it's part of life, part of the maturing process as well. And I'm happy to say, like I said, that like we sat here and I was like, I really got to come up with a story of me popping off in the last decade at least. And I really couldn't come up with one. And I was like, why is that? Have I changed that much? Am I just bottling? Is it gonna pop any minute? You know what I mean? Am I close to popping on something?
Well, but even your pop is like, I've seen you pop, and even your pop is like, when you go to like Party City and you get those party poppers, you know, like your pop is, you know, like little horn noises and stuff. You have a very gentle pop, but it does. No, it's a good thing, dude. It's a good thing, dude.
Thanks.
It's a good thing.
Well,
that's not supposed to be an insult. You're.
No, I just hope that's not taken out of context either.
Oh no, I just heard it. Okay, hold on. You have your moment there. I was saying you when you do pop or whatever, it's just not. You even in those moments you handle yourself well, right? Do you have the capacity to smash a windshield? 100% you do. You know what I mean? But it's gonna, maybe I think your bottle is bigger. I think the integrity of your lid is better. I think that it's gonna take a lot more than what you've been faced with. And for the record, what you've been faced with is more than enough to have a lot of people pop. So I think that I meant it when I said that you're just one of the calmest people I know, and it's very admirable. You're able to do that on another level that I think can be learned from. And I've seen you at work, and now. Well, you do have one of your tactics. One of the tools that you have is avoidance. That's something that you're.
Oh yeah, I don't like conflict.
No, So rather than
I typically run from discomfort.
Yeah, and I think that's a normal thing to do, and I think that you have the propensity to do it in excess a little bit. But I'm not even sold on that being a bad idea. I'm just really not. I think that there's
a line for everything.
There
right?
is. There's certain things that. Yes, there are certain things where in your own life, because we're friends, that I've been like, I would encourage you not to avoid this. I would encourage you to go take this on. And typically you'll like listen and things might get better. And there's been times where I've crossed the line with you and you didn't address me. And then I crossed the line again. And it's not defending myself. I shouldn't have been crossing the line until you did address me and in your version of popping. So in your version of popping, it was still very, what you had to like engage me on was very forthcoming, very diplomatic, but
very uncomfortable for me as well.
Yeah, very uncomfortable for you. And I know that about you. And since I know that about you, I'm like, oh, this must have been really hard for him to say.
Yeah.
And how do you not respect that? You know what I mean? So, and things are, you know what I mean? You made things better because in fact, I remember I was actually, and I meant it. I was like, great. I was like, I appreciate you brought this up. Thanks for bringing this up. Because I know that you don't want to bring it up. I know, but what it told me was that like the friendship was more important to you than avoiding the discomfort. You know what I mean? Like you're like, I'm just going to get uncomfortable. Something I hate doing because this sucks right now, and it got taken care of, so it's good. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I respected, your ability to hear me out and stay calm yourself. Like you could have. When most people get told, "Oh, you did something, I didn't like or whatever," they'll get defensive, and you didn't do that. I think, since we're on the subject of like having a friend and being able to talk through things, because obviously we've been friends for so long that we've been through a lot together, and I don't see our friendship ever ending, unless something catastrophic happened, which, I don't think is going to happen. But I think one advantage we've had when it comes to dealing with frustration and when things don't go our way is we actually do a lot of complaining to each other. You know what I mean?
That's true,
Which is good and bad. It's good because if I bottled up my issues, right? I'm frustrated that today didn't go how I had planned. If I bottle it up, eventually it's going to fill up and blow up. But instead, I kind of release some of that by you confiding in you and saying, hey, I'm upset about this because it didn't go my way. And typically, it's one of those things that if you wait 24 hours, you look back and you're like, I don't even know why I got frustrated. That was stupid. Yeah. You know what I mean? So what? I tried to make myself cereal and the milk was expired. You know what I mean? Like, you sometimes can get frustrated over little stuff, and it seems like at the time it's a big deal. But it's nice to be able to have a friend that you can kind of like say these things to, and either one, they're just gonna be like, okay, and then you just needed me to hear you. You don't even need to respond. You just needed to let that out, right? Or maybe be like, you're making a mountain out of a molehill, right? It's good to have somebody that you can trust enough to have those conversations with, knowing that they're not going to judge you too much about it. You know what I mean?
Right.
They may help you with perspective, because a lot of times we need just perspective, and that's the real problem, is we don't have it. Which that's a whole nother podcast we've done before. So it's nice to have that, and I appreciate that. And I know not everybody does have somebody that they can confide in like that, but I would definitely encourage people to try to find somebody, even if it's a therapist or something. You know what I mean? Like, or a help group online or something, somewhere where you can. Don't vent on Twitter, though.
Don't vent on Twitter.
Don't vent on Twitter, because that's the other side of this coin. Is when I'm doing this, right? When I'm having these conversations with you and giving you my frustrations, I'm bringing your aura down, your energy down at the same time. I'm basically stealing it from you, and there's only so much a person can take. Before they're just like, that's enough. I actually woke up in a good mood, but then you just laid on all your crap on me and brought me down. And that's not fair either. So you really have to be careful with those conversations and try to understand how much somebody can take as well. And I think we've done a pretty good job.
I think so. I think so, because it's like, I think that part of that trusting is that not only am I not going to judge you for this, but I'm also not going to ever use this against you. Because when people are complaining to people that they trust, they're showing their colors. They're getting vulnerable about the things that they're weak to. That's what this is. And so it would be, that I'm not going to ever use this as a means to influence you or against you. You know what I mean? And so that's part of it. So yes, find somebody who can, and also, I hate to say that, but I think that it's so critical to have somebody like that in your life or several people, that I think it's worth the risk of trusting some people who might end up letting you down. I mean, you might go through some hurt to get to the other side of that.
Yeah.
And that, hey, I have, you know what I mean? I've got friends from the past whom I, want nothing but the best for them, but I'm like, I wish I never got that close. You know what I mean? Because that was wrong. I made the wrong call there. You know what I mean? To get that close to that person. Lesson learned, and you gotta move forward. I wanted to dive back into specifically the power of calm in terms of the unexpected, right? Because when something unexpected happens, it's a version of you had an expectation and that didn't happen. But there's two different levels. I'm doing this. I'm expecting this to play out the way I want it to, and it didn't play out the way I wanted it to. Then there's I'm just doing life and something unexpected came along, and that can cause a lot of frustration. That can cause a lot of panic depending on the dynamic of the situation. And I mentioned something in the last podcast that I have to imagine a lot of people were like, what did he just say? Did he just say stabbing victim? Right? It's, yeah. So
that was a crazy night.
It was. And we've talked about it before. And this is where I think I can actually clap myself a little bit on the back that my level of calm in the face of chaos, and we did the tornado discussion before, but it can be pretty good. And I've learned that through the time as I've seen other people not be able to handle situations of chaos in quite the same fashion. And I'm not suggesting I can handle every situation. I'm suggesting I have a handful of stories where I handled it well.
Yeah, it's almost like an alternate version of fight or flight. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like when these things, like a crazy thing just happens out of nowhere.
Yeah.
It's a true test of, and I don't want to say character because that feels judgy.
I agree with you.
You know?
I don't think I have a better character because I can handle it well. I think I'm blessed because I can handle it well, and I should honor that.
Yeah. So tell the story, because you didn't tell it last podcast. You touched on it.
I touched on it, but I feel like we talked about it in a podcast, like 100
maybe.
Who knows? Whatever. But yeah, I mean, I won't let it drag on for too long, but you and I had been on, we went to a concert with a bunch of my friends. It was a Tool concert. And then we came out and we went to this nearby bar for just one drink or whatever. And bottom line, fast forward, we leave the bar. And then we hear this scuffle in the streets, right? And another person who can handle calm is like I can, and I would argue better, is my buddy Rob. This scuffle's happening. So he starts to go to try to break up this fight. And I grab him and I said, don't. And I said, just let these idiots do what they got to do. It's you guys want to fight, just let them do their thing. And then I look, as I'm holding on to Rob's shirt, I see a tremendous amount of blood. And that's not a fist fight. There's a weapon involved. And so now I'm like, and now I see the blood. So now I feel compelled that I'm going to run in because I want to go help whoever got hurt. I don't want to fight anybody. I want to go help whoever got hurt. I don't know what I'm dealing with here. There's a lot of blood. I don't know who did what to who. I have no idea. There's more than two people here, And now Rob grabs me. You know what I mean? He goes, no, hold on. I got to find the knife first. So he knows that it's a knife wound. So now he won't let me go. You know what I mean? It was actually kind of funny. He wants to break up the fight. I grab him. The fight got into life-threatening stuff. I want to go in to help somebody. He grabs me, and he's like, hold on. And so we were able to find who had the knife, and instantly I was able to determine that guy is not a threat. This is this is clearly a self-defense thing, and he won, right? And so it became very evident there were 2-on-1. It was pretty obvious that he was attacked just by his calm demeanor, and he won because he had the weapon. And anyways, now these guys they're all, I'm going to definitely put a warning on this one because this is on this podcast. These guys, it's not good, right? And so there's a lot of blood, and they're still trying to attack this guy because their adrenaline had taken over. These guys, and for the record, these guys were fantastic meatheads. They were both no good.
They're belligerent.
They were belligerent.
They were probably intoxicated or something.
Yeah, they were.
But they were being belligerent and stupid.
Yeah, and so I was stopping one of them because all I wanted to do was get him on the ground so I could get some pressure on the. I got to keep his blood. And the other guy, I mean, warning, this is going to get a little graphic, so I'll give you a few seconds to click away. 3, 2, 1. His intestines were coming out, and so it was, and I'm pretty sure Rob attended to that guy to hold. So I had my guy, I was trying to, so the way intestines work, there's a lot of pressure in there. It's why when you see war movies and there's a horrible scene, the intestines are everywhere because there's a lot of pressure in there. So if there's a slit, they're looking to get out. So I was holding my guy together, and he had a couple knife wounds that were all the way up to the hilt, but they're all over his body. And I'm just trying to look for what's bad and just keep as much pressure on these spots as I can. Meanwhile, my buddy Rob is putting a lot of pressure on the other guy because the intestines are trying to come out. And long story short, the paramedics get there, they take care of him. Rob got a letter from the fiance of one of the guys later who went into emergency surgery. I think they both did. She was expecting, you know what I mean? So now, and he was almost lost, but he wasn't. And so we saved him. Good for us. That's all well and good. I was like, you're brewing up a baby at home and you're out picking fights. Like, what are you doing, man? Like, it was so frustrated. I was so mad, like you're just don't be an idiot. And then we heard the real story because the guy who did the stabbing turned out to be the student of one of our friends who was a martial arts master.
Yeah.
And we found out later the whole story that he was 100% the victim. Like, he was just like, they just took a liking to him and they followed him out, and him and his girlfriend were just trying to get away from them, and he turned around and they slugged him and he took care of business. And so it was a crazy story, right? But the calmness played a big part in that, and the calm that me and Rob were trying to make. And here's what's funny is I had another friend who was the opposite. Like, he left because he was about to pass out. So I went and found, he was white as a ghost. Yeah. And so when we went and found him, and I was like, just in through your nose, slow, out, just relax, bringing him through that. He was just like, how did you just like, you know what I mean? But I tell you, there's things like it. For example, you put a tarantula on me, I'm going to freak out. People have their things. That was my calm was able to help. Rob's calm was able to help. You were actually awesome. I don't remember what you did. Like, you didn't want to get mixed in there with the blood and everything, but you also didn't leave. You just wanted to stay in the vicinity.
I was hanging out to see if you guys needed anything. Like, I was ready to like take the shirt off my back and if it was needed,
which is what I used. I took my shirt off, and I was for the record, I had a nice body back then. It was okay to do that, right?
And I think if I remember right, I think as the paramedics arrived, I might have helped like wave them into the situation or whatever. But I definitely was like, I don't think there's much more I can dive into here. But I also wasn't as calm as you. I wasn't freaking out by any means.
No, you weren't freaking out. In fact, at one point you stayed near me. This was something I remember. You stayed near me, and the energy was just, if you need something, just let me know.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And the guy who I was holding down was like, I need a cigarette. And you're like, somebody get this man a cigarette. And somebody got you a cigarette.
The whole time I'm thinking, if he smokes a cigarette, is that going to be bad for him?
That's me too.
Like, is it going to come out one of the holes in his body? You know what I mean? Like, my brain was going down this path of like, I don't know if this is the best medical advice I could give at the moment.
Me too. I was just like, I don't know if that's a good idea. And then I'm like,
whatever.
This might be his last moment.
Yeah,
Let's get the man a cigarette.
If this is what he needs to be calm in this moment, that's what I was thinking. Yeah. If he thinks he needs a cigarette to calm him down, and that's going to help him through this mentally anyway, then sure, get this man a cigarette. But probably not the best medical solution to a knife wound.
Yeah, you're right, because he needed to get calm, because before I was able to get him on the ground, he kept fighting me. I'm sitting there trying, like, at first, it's almost like he thought he was in a fight with me. Meanwhile, because I'm I'm squeezing him, but I'm holding his stomach together. And he never swung at me, so it was pretty, it was evident to him that I wasn't a threat, but he kept trying to push past me. And I remember thinking, like, I don't know how to get through this guy. And that's when I found his impulse, which was a third guy who was not in the mix, but clearly a friend of his who was just didn't want to leave him, but was just like totally in shock at what he was dealing with. And that was the guy. I was like, maybe him. And so I said, tell your idiot friend to get on the ground so I can hold his stomach together. Because I was like, maybe if it comes from a familiar voice. Right. And that's when he got in his face. He yelled at him. He's like, you need to listen to this guy. Get on the ground. And so then he sat down. But he still needed comment. And then you helped. You fetched the smoke from somebody. and I remember thinking the same thing. Like, is this bad? Should he be having this right now?
See, I think back then you were EMT certified, I think. Or you had been at some point. It maybe it had expired, but you had at least been through.
I was never. I wish I was EMT. I never made it to EMT. I was just first aid CPR certified.
Certified. Okay.
Well, CPR and first aid, right? Those are like two different things. And so I was that level of certified, which means CPR it's resuscitation, right? We know that it's the compressions. First aid is more like superficial wounds and stuff. EMT is another level that I didn't have.
Right. I remember that you had some sort of recent like certification.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, I haven't had that yet, so I think he knows what he's doing. Let him work.
Who knows?
Let him cook. On this one. But I mean, the getting back to the point was, this situation just came out of nowhere. Nobody saw it coming.
Dude.
It just happened like a bang, And when that happens, like the fight or flight response, you kind of get an idea of how your brain's going to react, how you're going to react, how your brain's going to function and all that stuff during these moments.
Yep.
I want to give a shout out to my sister who recently turned 50.
Hey,
went to
birthday, yo.
Why
you have a birthday? Shouldn't I play the actual thing? Here, I'm going to play it, and then
you have it.
Yeah, I got it.
You have it ready to go.
We'll cut right to it. So I'm looking up the video, and he's like, "Why don't you just put it in post?" So here it goes.
It's so cute.
It's funny every time.
Yeah. On our streams, I do this too now. Although I've had to reduce it because there's like a million birthdays every stream, and so I literally would be doing nothing but playing that over and over again.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, we're gonna bunch this up in every hour.
Yeah.
For all 10 people that said they have a birthday, this is for you.
Yeah.
I had to do that. But anyway, such a cute clip
of
your niece. Anyway, so my sister, who just turned 50, when we were younger, we were visiting family in Texas, and we were out on the lake with them, and it was a big little reunion thing, and so we had rented a couple jet skis, and my uncle had his own boat on that lake and stuff, and me and my cousin, who were probably too young to be driving jet skis by ourselves, wave runners, not like the stand-up ones, but wave runners. We were out and just enjoying the lake, just doing our thing on our jet skis, and they were on the boat, and they were kind of driving by, and I was driving kind of parallel with the boat to like, hey guys, check me out, I'm on this jet ski, and I'm like riding parallel with the boat, and my cousin was coming at the boat and T-boned me on my jet ski with her jet ski. And it hit my ankle and basically shattered through the fiberglass of the jet ski, and the fiberglass cut my ankle, which I didn't know at the time, obviously, because it all happened in an instant, right? Yep. 1 second I'm waving to my sister and family on this boat, and the next second I'm in the water. Except I didn't really know that either because I actually passed out. Yeah. So I flipped over the handlebars of the jet ski after getting my ankle crushed really. And I hit the water and I passed out. Next thing you know, I'm being pulled into the boat by my sister, who's 7 years older than me, and then we saw the blood gushing out of my ankle. That is basically the back of my ankle, and and I think about that, and I think about, had my sister not had the frame of mind to realize that I was passed out in the water. All this just happened. If she took a little bit longer time, I could have drowned. You know what I mean? But she immediately jumped out of the boat, like as the boat was moving still. Like the boats take a while to come to a full stop. They don't, really. So she had to jump out of the boat as they were, trying to stop it and saved me, and she pulled me and she rescued me and she saved my life, really.
That's incredible,
which
dude.
is, I'm forever grateful, obviously, because I'm alive today, thanks to her. But
thanks to her.
But the way she was able to keep her calm and do the right thing in the moment without hesitation means that she has that same kind of ability, right? Yeah. At least in that moment, it may not be
she
that
didn't
way.
Go, oh my God, look at him, he's out in the water.
I think obviously, no judgment, but obviously other family members on the boat didn't jump in straight away. They didn't beat her to me, So there was probably moments of a freeze of, oh God, what do we do? Yeah. Or maybe not, or maybe just not realizing the gravity of the situation even. Sometimes it takes a minute to to understand, oh, he's face down in the water, and you have to like really judge, okay,
my God,
how's the other cousin? What happened to her? She turned out okay, like because the way the boats are structured, the jet skis are structured, it absorbed the hit where I got flown over the handlebars.
Yeah.
So anyway, she was okay. Her jet ski did sink. I think, well, both of ours did. They sunk.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was fun. Those had to be paid for. And it did, cut our trip short and stuff because I had to get back and get like, attended to basically. So, but anyway, it was just like, it was in that moment that, or afterwards that I realized like, thank goodness my sister had a good head on her shoulders during that time because if she had froze, kind of like the others, who knows? Who knows what would happen?
Well, that's sort of what we're getting at, right? Is that like your sister showed? I mean, that's actually really impressive. That shows a part of her that is, I don't think a lot of people have.
Right.
I don't think it's on a lot of people to just jump into action like that at a moment's notice. 1 second before you got hit and were dying, you had not been hit and you weren't in the process of dying.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like 2 to 3 seconds after that was a reality, she was in motion to fix this, which could be argued that 4 to 5 seconds earlier in her life, she had no idea what she was about to do.
Yeah.
And I mean, really like unpack that from a human standpoint. Like, you're just doing your thing and all of a sudden, whoa, you know what I mean? Like, let's go. I'm in action. Same guy, Rob and I, this is years ago. I'm at his house. It's about 2 a.m, bro. And I'm outside. I'm about to leave his house, and we hadn't caught up in a long time. So we were just one of those things where I'm leaving for an hour now, but we just can't stop talking. You know, it's about 2 a.m. I'm about to leave his house, and you know what's interesting about this is I'm literally going to drive to his house tomorrow morning.
Oh wow!
I'm actually, this is crazy to me. I'm telling this story, but I'm going to be right where this whole story that I'm about to tell happened like 20 plus years ago. I'm at his house about 2 a.m, and behind his house is not a major road, but a road near this mountain that is a long stretch of road. And people kind of, they might have the tendency to go faster than they should, rather. And they also shouldn't be going fast because it wasn't really a completed road. There's a lot of dirt on the road. It's a regular road, but there was dirt that had made its way onto the road. So again, this was a long time ago, but long story short, this was all, the road was behind his house. So we're just sitting there talking. Every once in a blue moon, you'd hear a car go by. You know what I mean? Just that Doppler effect. Just every once in a while. Now, again, this is literally on the other side of his backyard. And we're talking, and all of a sudden we hear a car approaching, and then we hear an explosion, which is a blowout, a tire blowout. Now, typically what you want to hear when the tire blowout is you want to hear, maybe you don't want to hear any screeching or any tire screeching if you can get away with it, but you want to hear that inevitable and then the slow down, and then they're able to safely pull over. That's not what we heard. And what we heard was the blowout. Then we heard the skidding, and I'm all, and I close my eyes and I'm like, catch the road as in get those tires back on and just, lay off that gas, obviously, and just get control of your vector, and then a little bit of brake. Like, that's all going through my head. And I hear all the skidding stop. I'm like, oh, he did it. Like, he got it. But my brain's like, I don't hear any sort of flip. Well, the stopping was because the vehicle was now airborne, because he was going so fast when he had this blowout that he lost his back end spun out, and he caught, and he started to roll.
Oh my gosh.
Well, the brief moment of silence that I mistaked for that he got control was, like I said, him being airborne. And then we heard it just kept going. I'm like, that is a major rollover. And I'm like, get your truck. And no, actually I said, get in the car, because I was just about to leave. So I had my car. So Rob pops in the car with me, and we go out. And again, it's 2 a.m. Like, it's one of those things where it's like, there's going to be nobody there, So we get out there, and this truck, it's a truck, and it is demolished. And I'm like, listen, dude, as we're approaching this thing, I'm like, you have to be ready for anything. Now, this is way before the
Mhm.
stabbing night, so I wasn't even that familiar with Rob's ability to stay calm like me. I said, he might have no head. Like, you have to understand, like, that's how bad this wreck was. We might be coming up on a headless body. It could be that bad. So if you want to stay back here, he's like, no, I'm in. And so we walked up, and we walked in, and it was this kid. He was 20 years old, and he was like overwhelmingly catatonic. Just like there was no life in his eyes, and my heart starts to break. But I'm like, you got to keep it together, dude. Like, just you get through this guy. So I'm like, yo, and I'm like trying to get something out of him, and then I saw his eyes move a little bit. I'm like, oh, we got something. And I was just talking, keep him talking. Meanwhile, obviously, we've called the authorities, obviously. Actually, another car came by. Remember this. A car came by. We're waving so they don't smash into the truck. It's a dark road.
Mhm.
And they pulled over, and I'm like, call 911. So they did their thing. And I'm just not realizing, this is so long ago, I don't think I had a cell phone. I think it's a blessing that somebody came by who has a cell phone. They're like, oh, I have a cell phone. I'm like, call 911, right? And so they call.
I like how you held your hand up like it was the big brick cell phone.
It was like the Zach Morris one, dude. Yeah. Hopefully I have the frame of mind to put a clip of Zach Morris in the cell phone.
Sorry.
Zach Morris is a character on Saved by the Bell, whatever. These cell phones back in the day, listen, kids, if you're a kid, you know what we're talking about. These cell phones, by the way, were giant gray bricks that you just hopefully saw a picture of Zach Morris using. I don't know if I'm able to find one. And it was like $8 a minute. You know what I mean? It was the most ridiculous thing ever. Anyways, so I'm just trying to find a balance of staying calm, but not too calm, because I need to be in this kid's face. I cannot have him going to sleep. And when his eyes I'm not going to touch him. And when his eyes would start to shut, I would just clap in his face. I'm like, wake up. I'm just doing this. I'm like, authorities are on the way. And they got there, and it was pretty crazy, dude. Authorities got there, they went in, and one guy just touches the guy's stomach, and the guy's makes a sound. He's like, air vac. And next thing I know, there's a helicopter there. Jeez. They got the jaws of life. They're cutting him out. And unfortunately, I never found out how that turned out, so I hope it's okay. But that was a situation to where, what if our calm wasn't present, and we managed to just go look at the wreck, like, there's a big wreck, what do we do? And didn't do anything.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? What if that car didn't come by and have the frame of mind to be like, I can help? Well, this is where it's like the power of calm has huge implications, whether it's an acute example like a car wreck, or it's bigger things like your life just feels like it's out of control, and that you don't know what to do. I will tell you, you touched on meditating earlier. And I think that there's a lot of power in that. And I think that I've been doing a certain version of it that's not very good, but I think it's better than nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And mine is this new world I'm in. I wake up every day with fear that I may have made the wrong decision, and is this not going to work out? And then all these external factors come in, and they're keeping me from working and producing the way I want to. And I start to panic.
Mm-hmm.
And then my brain's like, why don't you just pump the brakes for a second and calm down and think about it? Then I think about my actual scenario, and I'm like, I got a severance package. I've been doing this job long enough to where I was able to save up some money. I have a decent handful of months I can survive if everything stopped.
Yeah.
In that moment, I'm like, you know what I can do in with several months? If everything stopped, I could find another career. What am I freaking out about? This is where it's like, I'm working on myself. I feel like my ability to stay calm, in arcing things. I think I have a good ability to stay calm in acute instances. I think in overarching things that are fear induced and self-imposed, if you will, I think my ability to stay calm is lacking. And I think that I have the greatest wife in the world who is incredibly supportive, and she's the one who has talked me off a ledge. She's been like, babe, we're fine. You know what I mean? Yeah. She's like, you have several months to get to right the ship. And if it doesn't work, you're fine. You have 20 years in tech. You know what I mean?
You got a lot of skill sets that would be coveted in a lot of different places.
Yeah.
So.
What's my problem?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You gotta land on your feet no matter what.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what? Going back to something earlier, I was talking about, when situations come up, how time feels like it speeds up for me.
Yeah.
But then as you were telling that story, and you're like, and you said, okay, there was that moment of quiet where you thought the car had come to a stop or whatever, but it was really its time in the air. That makes me feel like your clock does the opposite.
Slows down.
It slows down,
Yep.
and yeah, you're like everything's in slow motion, which gives you more time to process
Yeah.
and make the right choices and stay calm and things like that. So I wonder if that's something that that people can work on. You know what I mean? Like a person like me whose clock speeds up could start to learn how to slow it down, how to, be more mindful, be, kind of in a meditative state
Yeah.
in those moments. You'd almost have to practice for those moments, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? So that you're prepared,
Yeah.
because they don't happen enough,
Yeah.
thankfully,
Yeah.
to learn how to get good at staying calm and being in the moment and being present and being mindful of the situation at hand. But that's what, meditation is supposed to be about, as far as I know. So maybe that's something I'll have to embark on a journey. You know
It's
what I mean?
possible. It's possible. And I think you're right in regards to like my clock's going to slow down a little bit, and that it could be a skill set too. I don't know. I'm with you. I don't know how you would work on that, because these situations they just happen. You and I came up on a car wreck. I don't remember if you remember this. You and I came up on a car wreck. And I was like, all right, I'm going to go check this out. I don't know how bad it didn't look bad, but it was not great. It was good. Yeah. See, yeah.
And I don't get queasy about stuff very easily. And I was like, ooh.
Yeah.
Yikers.
Yeah. That shin bone was at a 90-degree angle.
Yeah.
I remember that too. And that poor lady.
It's a good thing you put a warning on this podcast. We have a lot of gruesome stories.
We do. But if you remember, part of that moment was me trying to stay calm for her and saying, help is on the way. And then her phone is ringing. She's like, that's my boyfriend. Can you answer the phone? And when I did, the guy's like, he's freaking out, which I can't blame him. And so now I'm like, I wonder if I can transfer calm through the phone to this guy. You know what I mean? So I'm like, I don't know how to do that, because if I was him, I'd be freaking out. But I remember being like, listen, this my name is Skizz. I actually said Skizz. No, I didn't. But I said I came up on it. She was in a car wreck. She is with it. She is conscious. She is not massively hurt. There doesn't appear to be anything life-threatening, but there is a broken leg, a very severely broken leg, but help is on the way. And he was like, if I remember, I'm trying to remember his reaction to this, dude, because I'm sure he followed up with like a question, like, where is this? I imagine that's what I would be asking. And I would have obviously told him, but I remember him. I remember him being like, "Okay, I'm on my way. Thank you very much." You know what I mean? So I'm like, I wonder if that calm transferred at all, because I'd be freaking out, right? But if I can you imagine? Well, boyfriend, you better get here quick, man. This chick is messed up. You know what I mean? That would have been like, you can't do stuff like that. The same way, going to kind of do a bookend here, is the SCE to aux. Nobody knew what to do. I believe probably everybody had the capacity to show calm had they had the answer. But can you imagine if the one guy who thought they had the answer, steely-eyed, if he was like, oh, I know what this is. Oh, what is it? I saw this a year ago. Ugh, everybody shut up. You know what I mean? Instead, he was just like, his brain was like, you know what? I know this pattern. What is this? What is this? That's SCE to aux. I remember this. Tell them SCE to aux. Meanwhile, the ship is like about to almost blow up. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like this crazy, crazy thing. But that calmness over time, this is the power of calm, dude.
Yeah.
It's so much easier said than done, but this is the power of calm, that if we lean all the way into it and kind of pledge allegiance to calm, I think people are going to visit new parts of their soul that they didn't know were there.
Yeah. Yeah, that could have gone the other direction easily. Like his inability, if he didn't stay calm, it could have locked up his brain, and that thing that he actually knew the answer to could have got locked away.
Yes, dude.
It could have prevented him from getting there.
Yes.
But yeah, that calmness, he saved their lives.
Yeah.
You know,
just
crazy. That's a cool story, man.
Yeah.
I've recently, I never really was into the space stuff, but not recently, but a couple years ago went to Kennedy Space Center. What an experience.
I know.
If anybody's ever in Florida, Cape Canaveral, what's it called?
That's Cape Canaveral.
Okay.
Yeah.
In that
That's
area.
across the water.
In that area. I mean, Kennedy Space Center is right near there. Go.
So good.
You were the one that insisted, because you knew we were going to that area to
Yep.
get on a cruise ship.
Yep.
And you're like, if you're anywhere near this place and you can afford one day off,
Make it happen.
go there.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, okay. And but when we went there, I was like, okay, this is what Skizz was talking about.
It's
this
cool.
This is so amazing. The history of our space travel.
Did you make it back in that room that had the wreckage from Challenger and I'm feel so disrespectful. The other shuttle that went down actually not that long ago.
I don't think so. I don't remember that being a thing.
Compared to, really, God, you missed that whole room.
Yeah.
It's, you know what? It's not easy to catch. But there is, so you remember the Challenger was in the 80s when the teacher went up in that whole thing. So that was like 86, 5, 4, 3, something. I feel awful.
80s, got it.
80s. And they have wreckage from that in this back room behind this painted glass. It's very serene. It's very quiet. Like it's haunting, dude. And then they also have wreckage from the other shuttle that went down like a lot sooner.
I'm trying to remember. I remember there being stuff like a case like that and like a metal grate hallway that just goes through this one door and out the other, but I can't remember seeing wreckage.
Oh, okay. I know why. I'm about it. Because when you walk in, because I'll tell you, I was just there with my father-in-law, and it was my second time there.
There you
and
go.
it was his second time.
I need to go a second time, apparently.
Yeah, but it was his second time, but his first time was like 50 years ago. So they didn't have any of this. So I said, did you see the wreckage? And he said, what do you mean? I said, back this, and I pointed to the area. He said, yeah, I did. I'm all, no, you didn't. And I said, you just walked in and saw all their belongings. Because you walk in, you see all that.
Yep, that's what it was.
See, dude, you ready for this? We got to go back now. You walk through this hallway, dude, and it's all the astronauts and stories about them and their belongings. And then you turn left and you come out the other side and it's more of the other shuttle. And then you leave. That's what I think most people do. But if you walk down that first hallway and you turn right, it goes back into this dark room and there's wreckage of the shuttle. Yes. Dude, I'm telling you, I kind of want to like almost put up my own, like right on a napkin. Yeah, he missed it too. And I said, no, go back in there, turn right. And then he did. He's like, whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Well, good reason to go back.
Yeah.
All right, let's do it.
I'm so sad. I wish I said this before you went. Like, make sure you turn right.
Information that would have been useful yesterday. Anyway, wow, this one's ran longer.
It's a
than
good
I,
one.
Than
It's
I
a
thought.
good-
It was a great topic.
Yeah, it was fun.
I hope I learned something from it. Like, this is so funny. Like, we do this podcast and we get so many good comments about people and how
the whole time.
Yeah, how the people are just like, oh, this helped me with this and that, and we're so appreciative of that. Like, that really does fuel us to want to do this forever. But a lot of times I find myself after we get done recording a podcast being like, wow, I learned something about myself or about something that we had talked about, either from you or just from like as I'm talking, like light bulbs go off. Like, oh yeah, there's something there I need to either work on or I'm doing correctly that I need to like hype on, So this is another one of those, I think. So it was a good discussion.
I can dig it. Seek that calm. Listen to what I'm talking about, because there's a moment coming up in your life. It's coming where your calm is going to be your best vehicle to get to the other side in the best fashion. That moment's coming. It just is.
Just don't know when it's going to be.
You don't know what's going to happen. You don't know if it's going to be acute or more of an arc or whatever, but what I can assure you is that giving into your frustration, allowing panic and bad decision-making to take the reins is always going to make things worse. Take it from Windshield Smasher. Okay.
Mayonnaise jar smasher.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Anyway, thanks for joining us, everybody. It's been another fun one.
Thanks, guys.
See you next time.